Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Cult Master Lee chuckled. I have learned this you-do phrase and understood the meaning of the words on the door, but does that mean I will be safe after going through? Cult Master Qin, I'm also the Cult Master Sacred Teacher, and a crafty person, you can't trick me. Qin Mu shook his head and walked up. He walked through the door and scraped the words on the door off with his vital qi before telling Emperor Yangfeng, Your Majesty, I have gone to a few cities to buy herbs, but since all kinds of disasters had befallen people, there were few herbs in the medicine shops. I could only buy a few herbs and I don't know how effective they will be. Minister Qin, just do what you can, said Emperor Yangfeng. Did Minister Qin hear any news after going out this time? Your Majesty has died. Qin Mu looked at him and said, neither too fast nor too slow. News from the capital city say that Your Majesty overworked yourself by handling political affairs and died in the process. The Crown Prince is currently preparing for your funeral and the entire empire is grieving. Emperor Yangfeng was slightly shook, then said with a smile that was not a smile, I have already died. Truly my good son, good son. What about General of Heavenly Strategies and the rest? Are they still alive? While preparing the herbs to refine spirit pills, Qin Mu said, in that battle outside Bazhu City, the people of my Heavenly Saint cult only focused on saving the Emperor, so they had teleported away after you left. General of Heavenly Strategies, High Official, Sichu, Sikong, and the rest were all captured. Dao Master and Rulai did not do anything to them, just handed them over to the Crown Prince. They are the heads of influential families that have great power in the capital city, so Your Majesty doesn't need to worry about their safety. The Crown Prince still requires the support of those influential families. My good son, Emperor Yangfeng sighed. The power that General of Heavenly Strategies and the rest wielded was great. They held over half of the capital's power, along with its military and many other levels of society. If the Crown Prince wanted to ascend to the throne, he required their support. The empire can't go on without a ruler, so the Crown Prince's ascension should be set on the first half of the third month. 6th of the third month is an auspicious date, so the Crown Prince should be ascending to the throne then. With the support of Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery, him becoming the emperor is firmly set in place. Whoever dares to object will be eradicated with their whole family. Where's Imperial Preceptor? I wouldn't have fallen into such plight if he was around. Imperial Preceptor has gone out on a honeymoon and there's still no news of him. When I went out this time, I also met quite a number of scouts searching for traces of Your Majesty. I heard that the Crown Prince ordered to find your body even if you're dead. Qin Mu executed phantom illusion technique and tunneled into the Emperor's divine treasures. In Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure, he used the medicinal energy of the spirit pills, but even though it dissolved, the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure wasn't repaired. The effects of the medicine were minimal. Qin Mu frowned and changed a few kinds of spirit pills, but all of their effects were similarly minimal. He then transformed into a black shadow and flew out of the heart of Emperor Yanfeng's brows. He revealed his true form as he landed on the ground and paced to and fro. Suddenly, he said, Your Majesty, your injuries are hard to treat. I can treat the ones on your body and even your soul, but I can't deal with those on your divine treasures. However, my grandpa apothecary should be able to treat you. Is Your Majesty willing to follow me to great ruins? Hope was renewed in Emperor Yanfeng's heart. This apothecary is? Qin Mu hesitated for a moment before saying honestly, Jade Face Poison King. Emperor Yanfeng's complexion turned black, and he said angrily, Jade Face Poison King. He was the Emperor and Empress Dowager was his mother. However, Jade Face Poison King had an unclear relationship with her, and before Apothecary's true identity was revealed, he was known as Jade Face Playboy that had lovers all around the world. Even reputable nuns had unclear relationships with him. Emperor Yangfeng naturally knew about this, but it wasn't convenient for him to say anything. He had once ordered people to assassinate Jade Face Poison King, to get rid of Empress Dowager's gigolo. Part of the reason why Grandpa Apothecary was forced to hide in great ruins was due to his efforts. He was absolutely unwilling to meet Jade Face Poison King. Minister Qin, I'm not going to great ruins. My unfilial son is ascending to the throne and spoiling the reform I had worked on for the past 200 years. I can't let this foundation be destroyed in a day, Emperor Yangfeng said solemnly. We shall go to the capital city. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly, and he took a glance at him. Your Majesty is sure you want to go to the capital city? Emperor Yangfeng nodded. The capital city is where the dragon veins gather, and my Ling family's 9 dragons monarch technique can cultivate twice as fast there. I just might be able to borrow the qi of the 9 dragons to reconstruct my divine treasures. The blood and sweat of Imperial Preceptor and I can't be allowed to go to waste. As long as I return to the capital city, I can depose my unfilial son. Qin Mu pondered it for a moment, then smiled. Pardon me. He took out a pig slaughtering knife and stripped the emperor of his crown and yellow robe. Emperor Yanfeng's face changed drastically. Minister Qin, what are you doing? Qin Mu pressed down on his head, and the pig slaughtering knife went scraping. After some time, Emperor Yanfeng's head was bald, without a strand of hair remaining. Qin Mu then took a few sticks of incense and lighted them up before pressing them down onto Emperor Yanfeng's scalp. He was in pain as his scalp sizzled from being burnt, forming scabs. Qin Mu sized him up and smiled. Excellent. Now, you still need a set of Buddhist robes and grass shoes, as well as prayer beads. Your beard also needs to be shaved. After he had said that, he pushed the emperor down and cleanly shaved his beard off. Emperor Yangfeng was furious, but he couldn't retaliate. After a moment, he was fresh and cool. He was dressed up into a yellow robe of an eminent monk, and the emperor that naturally exuded dignity and power was gone. Qin Mu then fetched a brush and adjusted the color of the ink before painting on Emperor Yanfeng's face. The man wanted to retaliate, but his movements were immediately sealed. He could only stand there stoically and let Qin Mu do whatever he wanted. Once Qin Mu was done painting, he fetched a mirror and placed it in front of him with a smile. Does your Majesty still recognize yourself? Emperor Yangfeng looked at the person in the mirror and saw a middle-aged monk. There was a scar that stretches all the way from his left eye to his nose bridge, passing by his right cheek and all the way to the bottom of his left ear. He gave people the feel of a fiendishly ill monk that ate vegetarian food and prayed to Buddha during his free time while committing murder and arson when he wasn't feeling well. Qin Mu took off his knife sheaths and placed them on Emperor Yanfeng's back. Emperor Yangfeng grunted and collapsed to the ground. He couldn't move and cried out, "Bones, my bones are cracking. Take them away quickly, I can't breathe. Oh, I've forgotten your Majesty's cultivation is crippled and your body isn't like before." Qin Mu immediately took the 2 pig slaughtering knives off and took a plank from outside. He carved 2 wooden knives and painted them with metallic paint, making a clear distinction between black and white. He then made 2 knife sheaths and the 2 wooden pig slaughtering knives on Emperor Yanfeng's back. Qin Mu sized him up and smiled. Your Majesty can now leave with me. Emperor Yangfeng pulled out the 2 wooden knives and said angrily, "Minister Qin, how dare you make a fool out of me? I want to execute you. Stretch your head out." Qin Mu stretched his head out with a smile. "Your Majesty, please." Emperor Yangfeng ruthlessly chopped at his neck twice and started panting in exhaustion. Qin Mu then passed his own pig slaughter knife over and said, "Your Majesty can use a real knife." Emperor Yanfeng's hands grabbed onto the handle of the knife, but he couldn't raise it up no matter what. He threw the knife on the ground in anger and said angrily, "I'll note it down for now. Let us go." Qin Mu bade farewell to Granny Sai and brought the emperor to walk while the dragon Chalin followed behind. Qin Mu taught Emperor Yangfeng spirit creation technique from great educational heavenly devil scriptures before imparting his overlord body 3 elixir technique to him. Cultivate these 2 techniques together as you walk. It'll strengthen your body at the minimum, while it can also be beneficial to your injuries. Emperor Yangfeng was skeptical and tried to cultivate his overlord body 3 elixir technique and spirit creation technique. His complexion turned for the better and he smiled. This technique is good, to actually be able to cultivate while walking. I feel that my strength has recovered. Cultivate it first then. When you achieve small attainment, the injuries on your body will heal and your physique will become stronger. I will then teach your ghost creation technique to cultivate your soul, so it could stabilize. We can then use medicine to treat the soul and attack one problem from two angles at the same time. By that time, the injuries on your soul will completely recover. Qin Mu was suddenly lost in thought. Now that I taught the techniques of great educational heavenly devil scriptures to the emperor, should he join our heavenly saint cult? If so, what position should I give him? He took a glance at Emperor Yangfeng while harboring evil designs. I'm still lacking a heavenly king. If I could make the emperor join us and become the heavenly king of heavenly saint cult, the entire eternal peace empire would become our heavenly saint cults. Emperor Yangfeng trained hard, and his body became stronger. He managed to cultivate some vital qi, but without divine treasures, there was simply a limit to his cultivation. Qin Mu also cultivated at a leisurely pace. When he executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, 5 beams of light shone down from the sky. Those were the 5 elements in his body connecting with the stars of the 5 elements, drawing the star power to raise his cultivation. Emperor Yangfeng was slightly stunned. He's still on 5 elements realm? He always thought that Qin Mu was already a divine arts practitioner of 6 directions realm. After all, Qin Mu's abilities were already on par with people of that level. His cultivation was also no inferior to divine arts practitioners of 6 directions realm, so he didn't think that Qin Mu would still be on 5 elements realm. Great educational heavenly devil scriptures of heavenly devil cult are truly extraordinary, Emperor Yangfeng exclaimed in admiration to himself, but he didn't know that Qin Mu's vital qi had mainly come from Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. The exact same technique Emperor Yangfeng was currently cultivating. Qin Mu's cultivation had indeed reached the peak of 5 elements realm and wasn't far from 6 directions realm. He was just waiting for the 5 element star sovereigns to stabilize first before trying to break through. The two of them walked for 4 days and spent their nights in the open. When they reached the next city, Qin Mu brought Emperor Yangfeng inside and bought some herbs. It was the first time Emperor Yangfeng had suffered so much in his life. Both of his feet were filled with blisters and abrasions. In the inn, Qin Mu placed him in a wooden tub to soak in medicinal water for a night. The emperor fell asleep in the wooden tub. When he woke up the next morning, he discovered that the blisters on his feet had all vanished and his body had become much lighter. He clicked his tongue in wonder. The two of them continued on their way and came to the boundary of Prefecture. There, they could see many divine arts practitioners chasing after the villagers, whipping and scolding them. This land belongs to our Prey Mountain sect. Those divine art practitioners were most likely disciples of Prey Mountain sect, and what they cultivated was lightning skills. They could control a formation to strike everywhere with lightning, so they herded the villagers into one spot. The emperor has ordered to reinstate the system of our ancestors, so the land of sects will belong to sects. From now on, there's no need to provide for the empire, only give offerings to Prey Mountain sect. A villager was unwilling to accept this and was struck to death by a bolt of lightning just as he started to argue. Qin Mu stopped and observed, frowning slightly. Emperor Yangfeng had a black face and said coldly, "To go against the tide." They passed by other prefectures and saw the power of sects returning like ashes taking flame once more. They were seizing territories and plundering the rich. As they split the territories, more chaos was added to the already chaotic lands. The snow disaster had already caused major damage. Thus, the addition of sects making a comeback and seizing territories, catching commoners to be their farming slaves, was adding oil to the fire. The authorities everywhere that had been sending disaster relief had also stopped. The numbers of people who were starving and freezing to death escalated to the point that they could not be counted. Emperor Yangfeng was solemn and worked even harder to cultivate, trying to repair his divine treasures and regain his cultivation. When they came to Harmony Prefecture, Qin Mu came to the city lord's manor and the magistrate of Harmony Prefecture came to welcome him. He took a glance at Emperor Yangfeng but didn't recognize him. His gaze landed on Qin Mu and said, "Cult Master. Talk inside." Qin Mu walked into the manor, allowing the dragon Chelin find a place to rest. When he heard the emperor's stomach rumble in hunger, he said, "Clean clothes hall master, give this senior brother a bowl of rice to eat." The magistrate of Harmony Prefecture was the clean clothes hall master of Heavenly Saint cult and was called Duan Mu Jing. He waved his hand so a servant would bring the emperor to eat. With a smile, he asked, "Why is cult master bringing along an eminent monk?" Qin Mu didn't explain and instead asked, "What's the situation in the capital?" "Not too good," said Duan Mu Jing. "Most of the Taoists and monks from Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery have gone to the capital. Tao Master and Rulai passed down their decree to confer the crown prince as peaceful emperor who would ascend to the throne on the 6th of the 3rd month. At the moment, there are still scouts of the crown prince wandering about, executing anyone who looks like the emperor." Qin Mu nodded quietly. This was close to what he had expected. Duan Mu Jing continued, "Also, now that the crown prince is ruling the empire, he has gained a lot of power. Most of the influential families have been taken under the wing by Buddhists and Taoists. Some of the influential families in the capital have already changed sides while monks and Taoists stayed in others and refused to leave. These influential families don't dare to fall out with them, so they can only let them stay. The current capital city can be said to belong to the people of all trades, with crooks mixed in with the honest folk. It could be said to no longer be under the rule of the emperor. The crown prince had also issued a decree to reinstate the system set by the ancestors, returning the lands that once belonged to the sects back to them. The other territories will belong to eternal peace. Also," Duan Mu Jing hesitated, then said, "An envoy came from Wolf Store country to talk about the war at the borders and make peace with the crown prince. He ceded 16 prefectures to Wolf Store country. An envoy also came from Barbarian Di Empire, and they are discussing ceding lands as compensation. It's really easy to squander the family fortune." Qin Mu smiled. "This crown prince is too stupid and cowardly to be an emperor." Duan Mu Jing was somewhat puzzled. Qin Mu showed no signs of being angry. On the contrary, he acted like there was nothing wrong. He didn't know that, however, that Qin Mu had never treated himself as a citizen of Eternal Peace Empire. From the start until now, he was always a person abandoned by the gods of great ruins, so there was no need for him to be angry. Ascension on the 6th of the 3rd month, truly an auspicious date that's suitable for murder. Qin Mu asked, "Have you found any news regarding Imperial Preceptor?" "We have found him." Qin Mu's spirit was aroused, and he fetched a few slips of paper. "Hall Master, prepare the herbs written on these slips of paper and store them in Venerate Prefecture City." Duan Mu Jing acknowledged the command. Qin Mu called Emperor Yangfeng and the Dragon Qilin over. "Let us leave the city." Emperor Yangfeng said in a panic, "I still haven't eaten to my fill." Qin Mu smiled. "I'll bring you to see Imperial Preceptor and get some food on the way." Emperor Yangfeng immediately placed the steamed bun down, and his expression became solemn. He followed silently behind the youth. After a moment, he said, "I would like to ask him where exactly he had gone these days." Qin Mu immediately brought him on the back of the Dragon Qilin, then leaped up to stand on the head of the Dragon Qilin himself. The Dragon Qilin stepped on the fire clouds and sprinted through the sky. Cold wind welcomed Emperor Yangfeng in the face, making him sneeze continuously. Blazing flames suddenly ignited around Qin Mu's body, and Emperor Yangfeng felt much better. The Dragon Qilin sprinted for 2 days before Qin Mu signaled this strange beast to descend. They were in the mountains that were piping hot. There were multicolored lights shining in the valley, but the steam evaporated as they traveled up. God's ray. Emperor Yangfeng has a grim expression as he sniffed the air and said, "Blood scent. There's blood of a god in the valley." Qin Mu brought him into a village and, there was indeed a blood lake there. Beside it was a small wooden house, behind which was a small river. The river water was slightly warm from being boiled by the god's blood, and a woman wearing snow-white sable fur stood beside the river. Her stomach was slightly bulging. Beside her feet was a middle-aged man who was holding a wooden club and smacking clothes on a stone board. Beside him was a bamboo basket with washed clothes. Qin Mu jumped down from the back of the Dragon Qilin, and Emperor Yangfeng followed after him. However, his legs weren't steady, and he went sprawling on the floor. Then most of the princes in. The couple heard the sound and turned around to have a look. Qin Mu had a smile on his face as he went forward. "Couldn't you have helped me up?" Emperor Yangfeng got to his feet and hurried forward. The middle-aged man placed his wooden club down and wiped his damp hands on his shirt. He stood up beside the woman and smiled at Qin Mu and the emperor, who was walking over with a pale face. Imperial Preceptor. Emperor Yanfeng's footsteps became faster and faster, and just as he was about to criticize Imperial Preceptor, he suddenly noticed blood stains on Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's chest. His complexion wasn't good as well. The emperor was greatly shaken and shed tears. "My Imperial Preceptor, how did you land in such a state?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor welcomed the emperor and noticed that he had lost all his cultivation. He was equally sorrowful in his heart. "How is it any different from your majesty?" The woman immediately said, "You are also injured, don't throw your mental state in disorder." Qin Mu was stunned. The two strongest practitioners of Eternal Peace Empire were actually both severely injured. Heavenly Saint Cult Master pays his respects to Imperial Preceptor's wife. Qin Mu greeted the woman. Imperial Preceptor's wife saw the emperor's bald head and was bewildered. She immediately said, "Don't just stand there, come into the house to have a seat. After I left Little Jade Capital, I wanted to investigate the origin of the natural disaster and met a god who was holding a bottle gourd in his hand," Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said indifferently in the small wooden house. "The natural disaster was released from his bottle gourd. He got injured in our fight, but my injuries are more severe. With my wife being pregnant, we decided to stay here for a period of time." He had said it so simply, but one could imagine how fierce that battle must have been. Emperor Yanfeng checked the injuries on his body and looked at Qin Mu with inquiry. Qin Mu examined the man and shook his head. "The injuries left behind by a god contain the will of a god inside, so I can't cure the root of the injuries. If you want to cure the root, I will have to return to the village and request Grandpa Apothecary's help." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I knew you couldn't cure the root of the problem, so I didn't go and find you. My injuries now are too severe, so I can't return to the capital city, otherwise, I would surely die. I can't let others know I'm injured. But I never expected your majesty to." The two middle-aged men looked each other in the eyes and suddenly laughed out loud in unison. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor laughed until he started coughing endlessly. Emperor Yanfeng looked outside and asked, "The blood lake outside?" Left behind by that god, he was very strong and suffered some superficial wounds. The injuries on Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's chest opened up again and Qin Mu applied some dragon's saliva on him. But just as the wound was healed, it was once again torn apart by the remnant of the divine art the god had hidden in the wound. This kind of injury could no longer be cured by medicinal stones. Even if it were spirit pills that could allow a person to come back to life, they still wouldn't be able to remove the remnant of the god's divine art. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and took out a sword pellet that Mute had gifted him. He executed it gently, and sword lights appeared. Qin Mu pushed them forward, stabbing them around Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's wound. Imperial Preceptor's wife gave a low gasp while Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Yanfeng didn't move at all. Qin Mu stretched his index finger out, and dense vital qi swirled like a cloud at the tip of his finger. When he gently tapped the sword pellet, a whoosh sounded, and a sword light shot out from the sword pellet, piercing through the house and into the blood lake. Boom! The blood lake trembled violently and exploded with a world-shaking bang. After 3 booms, the sword light from the sword pellet was shattered by the tremors and became smaller. Divine Physician's miraculous hands are truly ingenious. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed with admiration. To actually use the power of the god's blood to counter the remnant of the god's divine art. Qin Mu applied the dragon's saliva once more, and the wound no longer bled. He said, "I can't guide the other divine arts in your body out. Your Majesty, Imperial Preceptor, there are 2 paths now. The first will be me bringing you guys to Great Ruins to treat your injuries, while the second is to head to the capital. You guys can choose what you want to do." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at Emperor Yanfeng, and they seemed to know each other's thoughts as they said in unison, "The capital." Qin Mu pulled out his big slaughtering knife and pressed Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's head on the table. Imperial Preceptor's wife cried out in astonishment, "Cult Master Qin, what are you doing?" Emperor Yanfeng rubbed his bald head and said, "Madam, you will know when you look at me." Qin Mu's hands were nimble, and he shaved Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor bald in a blink of an eye. He then took a few sticks of incense to burn a few scabs on his head. He then took out a yellow Buddhist robe from his Daotai sack with the ease of a routine. With a smile, he said, I had made an extra set which for Imperial Preceptor. Please wait a minute, let me draw a green birthmark on half of Imperial Preceptor's face. After he was done with Imperial Preceptor, he turned to Imperial Preceptor's wife. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor immediately said, Cult Master, my wife is pregnant. In such a freezing weather, if she has no hair. In that case, she shall be a Daoist nun. Qin Mu took out a Daoist robe and handed it over to the woman. He then suddenly blinked and smiled at them all. That's right, do the three of you want to enter my cult? My Heavenly Saint cult feeds well, and if you have no skills, we can teach you handicrafts to make a living. I assure you guys won't starve to death with us. The Emperor and Imperial Preceptor didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Devil Cult Master was really daring and had no reserve being the Devil Cult Master of Heavenly Devil Cult. He actually wanted to pull the Emperor and Imperial Preceptor into his Heavenly Devil Cult. If your injuries aren't healed, you won't be able to seize back the throne, and learning handicraft from our Heavenly Saint cult, you could at least feed your family, Qin Mu persuaded. Furthermore, if you enter the cult now, I can give you guys very high positions like the Heavenly King or Elder, while if you want to join after you are completely crippled and unsavable, I can at most make you incense masters and only a vice at that. Madam, help me persuade them. Imperial Preceptor's wife smiled but didn't say anything. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said indifferently, if I join, I want to be the cult master. Emperor Yangfeng nodded. Me too. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, if you're the cult master, I'll assist you. Qin Mu's eyes lit up. Emperor wants to be the cult master? Emperor Yangfeng was flabbergasted. He totally didn't expect Qin Mu to actually have the plan to give up the seat of Heavenly Devil Cult Master. If the Emperor became the Heavenly Devil Cult Master, wouldn't Eternal Peace Empire be part of his Heavenly Devil Cult? This was truly a hot potato that he couldn't pick up. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also got a headache and looked secretly toward Emperor Yangfeng, signaling him to not take. Imperial Preceptor's wife laughed and said, Cult Master Qin, they aren't willing, but I am. I wonder what kind of position Cult Master could give me. Qin Mu's eyes lit up, and he exclaimed secretly at the cleverness of this woman. She had broken the silence to prevent Imperial Preceptor and the Emperor from becoming awkward. If Madam joins the cult, I can give you a sinecure. Qin Mu smiled. Does Madam know embroidery? How about the incense master of Embroidery Hall? All right. The young married woman then smiled and pulled Imperial Preceptor to one side and said in a low voice, Husband, why do you have to reject Cult Master Qin? What are the odds of winning by going back to the capital city this time with His Majesty? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was silent for a moment, then said, Everyone in the world supports the reform and 70 to 80% of the civil and military officials in the Imperial Court are the men of His Majesty and I. When we return to the capital city, we can definitely execute the rebels and seize back the throne. Imperial Preceptor's wife smiled. Do you really think so? Won't Great Thunderclap Monastery and Dao Sect stop you? If it's you, you might be able to defend yourself against Rulai and Dao Master, but will His Majesty be able to defend himself against them? Qin Mu nodded lightly and smiled. There are Taoists and monks staying in the houses of all the kings, dukes, and ministers. They are all chanting Dharma or reciting Daoist scriptures. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was silent, and his wife pushed Qin Mu away to continue in a low voice, The other two big sacred grounds are watching your people, and those that are close to you are either under house arrest or locked in prison. Now, you can only borrow power from Cult Master Qin. And to borrow someone's power, you need to make them feel at ease. Qin Mu moved over again and was about to say something when Imperial Preceptor's wife pushed him away. Imperial Preceptor pondered it for a bit, then walked over to Qin Mu. Heavenly Saint cult lacks a Heavenly King. Qin Mu nodded. The fourth Heavenly King. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor then said, Let me be this fourth Heavenly King, however, His Majesty can never have any connections with Heavenly Saint cult. Your Majesty, I shall join his heavenly saint cult. Emperor Yangfeng was stunned, but after quite a while, he said slowly, sorry to put Imperial Preceptor at such an inconvenience. Qin Mu revealed a smile and said to Emperor Yangfeng, Your Majesty seems to have a misunderstanding regarding our heavenly saint cult. We aren't a cult, and our philosophy is the everyday use of common people, and what we carry out is the path of the saint. This reform of Your Majesty and Imperial Preceptor has similar ideals. Imperial Preceptor's wife smiled. Cult Master, we should be on our way. There's no need to impart cult's teachings to His Majesty since it's impossible for him to join our heavenly saint cult. Imperial Preceptor's wife went to sit on the back of the dragon Qilin while Qin Mu, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, and the Emperor walked below. The two people executed Overlord Body 3 elixir technique that Qin Mu had taught them to recover some vital qi. These two people were like ascetic monks. Their footsteps weren't fast and they walked with great effort, so they reached Venerate Prefecture only after close to 3 days. Heavenly Devil Cult in Venerate Prefecture had already prepared the herbs, and Qin Mu could finally treat the injuries in Emperor Yanfeng's soul. Imperial Preceptor's external injuries were all healed while the remnants of the divine arts left behind by the god in his body were not something Qin Mu could guide out. The remnants of the god's divine arts were extremely powerful. But if Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor could refine them, it would no longer be too troublesome for Qin Mu to cure him. The crucial point was that Imperial Preceptor couldn't mobilize his magic power. The remnants were hidden in his body and divine treasures, so he had to use his own magic power to suppress them. If he wasn't careful, he might just trigger the power of those divine arts. Neither the Emperor nor Imperial Preceptor can fight. Qin Mu sighed ruefully to himself. The two strongest practitioners of Eternal Peace Empire had both become sickly people that required his care and protection. As for himself, he was continuously cultivating without a break. As long as he was walking, Overlord Body 3 elixir technique was subconsciously executed and the 5 beams of star power from the stars would come pouring down. While they were on their way, Qin Mu also trained his sword skills diligently, practicing the 2 forms of sword skills village chief had taught him again and again, trying to perfect them. When Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor saw these 2 moves from Sword Picture, he gave a soft cry of astonishment and couldn't resist taking a few more looks. Cult Master, which elder taught you this? My village's village chief, the eldest one. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor pondered over it for a moment, then said, You are trying to incorporate the 3 basic sword forms that I founded into these 2 sword skills? They are already perfect, so adding my basic sword forms would disrupt the balance. The power is increased, but many flaws have appeared. Why did you do this? Qin Mu executed Sword of Founding Emperor Sea of Blood and suddenly had a feeling of sorrow. Sword of Founding Emperor, Sea of Blood, mountains and rivers exist in a vast and obscure heart, but when looking around left and right, there are no more people donning the clothes of homeland. This was a lonely reminiscence of one's homeland, the long-gone martyrs. It had the mood of sorrow and heroism. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor picked up a branch and said, There are still numerous flaws in your moves, so why don't I feed you some moves? Qin Mu's eyes lit up and he smiled. Please guide me. I dare not. Qin Mu also fetched a branch, and the 2 of them used tree branches as swords. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor attacked while Qin Mu used Sword Picture to defend. However, after just a moment, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had broken through a flaw and destroyed sword-treading mountains and rivers. Qin Mu pondered for a long time. The flaw Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had pointed out was different from what Village Chief had pointed out. Both of them were grandmasters in sword skills, but the path each of them took was different. Village Chief's sword skills had a passionate and intense feeling while Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's moves were calm. It was like he was opening a door, pushing forward the reform to open up new horizons. Their philosophies were different, so their sword skills were naturally different as well. Getting pointers from them allowed Qin Mu to receive different benefits. Village Chief's pointers had pushed Qin Mu into exhausting his knowledge, to the point his foundation wasn't enough to continue improving these 2 moves. However, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's pointers opened up a new path for him, making him able to continue improving his sword skills. They cultivated as they walked, and Qin Mu's comprehension of his sword increased more and more. He felt like his sword skills were about to cross to another level, but no matter what he did, there was always a veil preventing him from crossing over. No need to practice anymore. No matter how much you practice, there won't be any improvements anymore, said Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. If you want to break through, you will need your own enlightenment. Qin Mu was puzzled, but Emperor Yangfeng, who was beside him, understood what Imperial Preceptor was saying and sighed ruefully. Another step further and you'll be a little Grandmaster. Minister Qin, to reach such a level at such a young age. When I reached that step back then, I was already 57 years old. I cultivated 9 Dragons Monarch technique to draw the Qi of the 9 dragons, which resulted in boundless vital Qi. Only when I felt the movement of the dragon Qi under the earth and the general situation of the world that was bustling with unpredictable activity did I break through in one go. You're some 40 years faster than me. Qin Mu smiled. Your Majesty, what's the expertise of your 9 Dragons Monarch technique? My expertise is transformation, Emperor Yangfeng said solemnly. If you want to learn, I can teach you. Before me, 9 Dragons Monarch technique was a technique that was only proficient in spells, but after it landed in my hands, any spells, sword techniques, corporeal body divine arts could be executed. Why? Because dragons signify transformation. They can be big and small, visible and invisible. They can soar into the sky and also dive into the deep sea, hide in the abyss and lay in the fields. They can move clouds and bring rain, they can burn the sky with a raging inferno, and they can control a tempest. Do you want to learn it? He thought that Qin Mu would reject because he was the devil cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult, a reputable figure. That's why he was caught off guard when Qin Mu said without a thought, yes. Emperor Yangfeng was stunned and suddenly laughed out loud. Oh well. Who says 9 Dragons Monarch technique is the technique of our Ling family and can't be imparted outside? I'll teach you. Imperial Preceptor's wife looked at Emperor Yangfeng in astonishment while Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had a calm expression. His Majesty is such a person, heroic and candid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to use me. I've already seen the original copy of 9 Dragons Monarch technique more than 10 times. Emperor Yangfeng taught Qin Mu 9 Dragons Monarch technique, how to circulate his Qi, as well as how to operate the Qi of the 9 dragons. This technique was different from Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, and it turned one majestic and imposing if they executed it. At the same time, it was full of changes and one's every movement contained the mighty force of heaven and earth. 9 Heaven's Divine Dragon Shroud is a spell that can transform into 9 true dragons which can hide in clouds to attack the enemy. Look! Emperor Yangfeng aroused his vital Qi and a palm-sized cloud came out 3 inches from the top of his head. A few dragon Qi that were fine like earthworms bore fangs and brandished claws fiercely. When Emperor Yangfeng's vital Qi was depleted, the cloud and dragon Qi puffed out, vanishing. Emperor Yangfeng mumbled while panting, I have no more magic power, but you should have seen what I mean. Qin Mu nodded and executed his Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, fusing 9 Dragons Monarch technique with Overlord Body Vital Qi. Dragons suddenly appeared faintly in midair and 9 dragons stretched their claws out to shatter the mountain rocks in a radius of dozens of yards around them. Emperor Yangfeng was stunned, and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was also beyond astonished. They saw 9 dragons circling in the sky. They then suddenly transformed into fire dragons, and as the blazing fire revolved in the sky, the fire dragon tornado appeared around them and lifted their bodies up. The fire dragons then transformed and controlled water, lifting them up while using it. Lightning then burst forth and crackled as it struck everywhere. Emperor Yangfeng and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at each other and saw astonishment in the other's eyes. This 9 Dragons Monarch technique was just mastered by Qin Mu, and he already seemed like he had cultivated it for 10 or 20 years. He just picked the technique and was already much better than most of the princes in Imperial College's Royalties Park. Qin Mu dispersed 9 Heaven's Divine Dragon Shroud, and Emperor Yangfeng taught him everything he had learned and comprehended. He sighed at the end. If your surname was Ling, how wonderful would that be? There were only 3 days left to the capital, and it was also 3 days till the Crown Prince's ascension on the 6th of the 3rd month. At that moment, a huge bird flapped its wings and landed on the ground with a tumble, transforming into a woman in green who bowed in front of the group. "Sacred teacher, everything is prepared." Qin Mu nodded and said, "You can go ahead first." "As you command." The woman turned back and ran 2 steps before shaking her body to grow 2 wings on her back and soaring into the sky. "Since Great Thunderclap Monastery and Tao sect can kill an emperor, my heavenly devil cult can do so as well. Otherwise, how can we be the #1 sacred ground of the devil path?" Qin Mu said in a soft voice. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor frowned. "What's your plan?" "Enter the capital, kill the emperor." This video will end here.